The desert was still dark when the first echo of hoofbeats broke the silence, rolling across the lonely prairie like a storm that had lost its way. And if someone had been standing outside the old Carter ranch at that hour, they would have sworn the earth itself was trembling. But inside that fading wooden house, poor rancher, Elias Carter was just waking up, unaware that within the next few minutes, over 1,000 Apache riders would surround his land at dawn, all because of a kindness he had nearly forgotten. Elias had lived his whole life on the dry edge of the Wyoming frontier, surviving on willpower, stubbornness, and a faith that good always came back somehow, even if life tried its best to convince him otherwise. He didn't have much, just a broken-down stable, a few tired horses, and a ranch so empty it felt like the sky had swallowed its future. But he had a heart big enough to shine even in the dust, and that heart had changed the destiny of an entire Apache nation, though he did not know it yet. As the hoofbeats grew louder, Elias stepped out onto his porch, coffee in hand, unaware that his past was galloping back to him in a wave he could never have imagined. The rising sun spread gold across the plains, and that's when he saw it, a wall of riders stretching from horizon to horizon, their spears glinting with the morning light, their paint marked for honor, not war. Elias froze, his breath caught in his throat, and in that strange, surreal moment, it wasn't fear that reached him first. It was confusion, because at the front of that endless Apache formation was a young woman he recognized instantly. Tallulah, the injured Apache girl he had rescued 5 years ago, the one he had carried through the freezing night to save her life when no one else dared. She rode straight toward him, her hair braided in ceremonial style, her horse decorated with feathers of high honor. Behind her 1,000 Apaches rode in complete silence, a silence so heavy it felt holy. Elias whispered, "Dear Lord, what have I done?" His hands trembled as he stepped forward, remembering that winter night, long ago when he found a wounded girl in the snow and carried her home without hesitation. He never expected repayment. He never expected anything. He just did what he felt was right. But sometimes the right act doesn't echo. It shakes mountains. And today, at the break of dawn, those mountains had arrived on horseback. As the Apache army came to a halt, the air felt charged, glowing with something Elias didn't understand yet. Tallulah dismounted, stepped forward, and bowed her head deeply. "Elias Carter," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "Our people ride to honor the man who saved one of our daughters. You showed kindness when the world gave none. And today we repay." Her words struck Elias harder than any bullet ever could. He felt the sting of tears forming, because for the first time in years, he realized someone had seen his heart. Part A ends with the entire Apache force waiting silently, respectfully for Elias to speak, a poor rancher standing before 1,000 warriors who had come not for war, but for gratitude. Elias tried to speak, but his voice wavered, caught somewhere between disbelief and overwhelming emotion. He had always been the invisible kind of man, the type the world passed by without noticing, though to stand here now, facing 1,000 Apache riders waiting for his words, felt like some miracle the desert itself had whispered into existence. Tallulah watched him with deep warmth in her eyes, the same warmth he remembered from that night she recovered by his fireplace. Too weak to speak, but strong enough to smile at the man who had saved her. "Tallulah," Elias finally said, voice trembling but gentle, "I didn't do anything special. You were hurt, and I just helped." "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, they would not. You risked your safety to save mine. You carried me across the storm when even my own tribe believed I was lost. You gave me life again. That gift cannot be forgotten." Then she stepped aside, and an older Apache chief rode forward, Chief Akacheta, a leader known across the West for both ferocity and honor. As he dismounted, every Apache bowed their heads in silence. "Elias Carter," the chief said with a voice that carried like thunder, "we bring no trouble to your door. We bring only respect. A man who saves a child carries the spirit of the eagle, and such men must be honored by all nations. The chief signaled with his hand, and instantly several riders opened large woven bundles strapped to their horses. Inside them were gifts, beautifully carved tools, blankets of rare dyes, weapons crafted with ceremonial detail, and supplies enough to run a ranch for years. Elias stepped back, shaking his head. I can't accept this. I'm just a rancher. I don't deserve... You deserve more than this, Tallulah interrupted softly. Our people debated for many moons how to repay the man who saved a life precious to us. Some wished to build you a new home. Others wished to bring horses. My father wished to offer you the protection of our warriors. Elias blinked in confusion. Protection? Yes, she said. Your ranch. It struggles. You are alone. The storms of the frontier do not spare men like you. The chief stepped closer. If harm ever comes to you, if bandits ever threaten you, if drought ever takes your herds, you send a single fire signal. He pointed to the mountains far behind. And we will come. Elias felt his knees weaken. Not because of the gifts, not because of the honor, but because for the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. 1,000 riders stood before him, not because he asked, not because he paid, but because he had shown kindness in a world where kindness was rare. Tallulah smiled gently. I grew up hearing stories of brave men, Elias, but none moved me as much as the night you carried me through a blizzard to save my life. I never forgot your warmth, your courage, your gentleness. So today we show you what you taught us, that the world still has good men. Elias swallowed hard, emotion rising like a storm breaking free. Thank you, he whispered, barely finding the strength to speak. All of you, I don't know what to say. The chief raised his hand, and instantly the entire Apache force lifted their spears in a single, unified gesture of respect. A salute that no cowboy in history had ever received from so many Apache warriors at once. The sun rose higher, painting the sky with bright gold, and in its light, Elias felt something he hadn't felt since childhood. Hope, safety, belonging. As the riders prepared to depart, Tallulah stepped close, touching his shoulder softly. You gave me a second life, Elias. From this day on, your life is protected by 1,000 hearts. And with that, the Apache army rode toward the horizon, leaving behind a rancher who stood tall, not because he was strong, but because he was kind. The dust settled. The silence returned. But something had changed forever. Elias Carter was no longer just a poor rancher on forgotten land. He was the man whom 1,000 Apaches honored at dawn. A man whose kindness had echoed across nations. A man the frontier would never forget.